Good. All right.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Leading from Home. And finally, we are back, all three, finally. So, Madeleine, welcome back. But we must go straight to you because you've been away for the last week with a very heroic story, which has been in the mission of fighting stress and health. We've got to go to you. So please explain to us while you were away last week. School teacher.
Yeah, well, I guess that you have seen the movies about Rocky. You know that there's this for babies. So what I did was something much worse. I don't have any cool story here. I'm practicing Thai boxing. So I was in a real fight, you could say, with my Thai boxing trainer. But then I kind of mispunched and ended up like this. So
mispunched on him, or hopefully mispunched on something else. Like, hope he's okay.
Well, he's okay. He's a pro, so he should be okay.
No, that's all right then. So is it broken, or what have you done? What's the
No, it's not broken. It might be ligament, but I really hope that it's not. I hope it's just severely sprained. So, I will probably have it like this next week as well, and then we'll see.
Well, I was going to say maybe you should switch to Phil's favorite pastime of yoga, which we've encouraged him, but Phil hasn't started doing yoga yet. So, Phil, what stress managing activity can you recommend to Madeleine now that she can't do boxing?
Well, keep up the walking. I know that we're going to talk about it a little bit later on in the program, but and you know, in the running, and just get outside, keep the cardiovascular going, Madeleine, and hope it heals quickly for you.
Thank you.
Or like, as you know, me being a big cyclist, you can buy an indoor cycle, Madeleine, and you can talk about cycling with me every week. So there you go, walking and cycling. So we've got plenty of suggestions for you to keep it up. So speaking of keeping up, and also this is going to be a real positive spiel to this one, because we're coming to the end of the year, and it's always a good time to reflect. And it is not all gloom and doom, which a lot of the newspapers, you know, we always hear about as COVID. That as us three have been preparing for today, there's been some incredible inspiration that has happened across not just our lives, but everybody else's, for those who have attracted some positive inspiration from other people. So today's episode is about sharing those positive inspiration and transformations that people have done through this year that has been stressful and like a year like no other. So and for other people to, you know, look at those positive habits that they can sort of bring into their lives to help with the stress and the negativity that is around us. So to our injured Thom, we thought we'd give you some sympathy. And do you want to kick things off, Madeleine, because you've given us a lot of inspiration this year with your team about new things very early on with the COVID that you've incorporated about how to lead from home in a different way, in a very creative way, which you're still doing, which is, I think, is important to people to not just think of it a temporary habit to do during COVID. So do you want to kick things off and let us know about some of the things that you've been inspired by?
I'm glad to. Thanks, Sean. I would just like to take the opportunity to give some credit back to my team, because I think that they are my true source of inspiration. Because prior to COVID, it was mostly always managers that was inviting for Friday fika or coffee or so. But what I've seen is that people take it in their own hands and make their own suggestions and own invites, and for virtual fikas and virtual coffees. And it became so popular in my team. One of the team members invited for a morning coffee, so we had to extend it, or we urged him to extend it. Could you please make it twice a week? Because we had so much fun starting the day off like that, and that really, it gives me a lot of energy.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that's the best thing about a lot of these, I suppose, you know, leading from home is that, and leading from your work, is that you give people the seed and then they take it off and run with it, rather than people always waiting for like the managers, like, what next? How should I cope? And that have that always uncertainty, or oh, here we go again. And I think that's the best thing about these, about people being resilient and being responsive to their own actions, as well as, you know, for the team as well. So, and I think your walk and talk has been one of the best things I think we've come across in this podcast, because so many people always default to Zoom calls. Oh, I have a meeting, I have a catch up. As I say, well, it's one-to-one. go for a walk. You both benefit. You get some fresh air, and you get away from your screen, which we've talked about so many times.
Yeah, and that has been a true improvement in my own life. If I just go back to myself, to just, and that is what I also urge my own team members to look through the calendar each day, pick one meeting that you can have as a walk and talk, because you have always one meeting that you don't need to use the laptop for. Take on your shoes and go out for if it's just for half an hour, just do it. Get some air, get some exercise, get some other scenery. And what I've discovered is that when you're outside, when you're only listening, you can't do anything else, right? So
exactly. That's
so you have the full attention.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Maybe Phil, you could talk about that about being engaged, and I think we've talked about it maybe one of the few episodes of when you have a meeting with somebody, that to be fully engaged for them listening, but also you having empathy to like what they're saying. If somebody says, "Oh, look, like Madeleine, I just hit my arm," and you're looking at your phone, so, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I'm fine." You'd be like, "Come on, this is something serious." But, "Oh no, what happened?" And that's the thing that people are often having their phone next to the computer and looking at it and only half hearing things. So, as opposed to being fully engaged and having no distractions around you.
Massively important. This whole myth of multitasking. I think, the purity of just being able to get into a dedicated space where you can enjoy and concentrate on engaging with the other person is a real bonus. I think one of the other things that it comes across really clearly is that, if you were in a meeting with, say, half a dozen, 8, 10 people, you would never be staring at all of the other people all of the time.
Yeah.
And, it's just, again, one of those things of, when we're one-on-one or two-on-one, like as we are here, we need to see each other. We need to see the reactions. But actually, for most of the time when you're in a team meeting, you don't need to be seeing the reactions of people all the time. You just need to be hearing. You just need to be present. And so it's a lovely thing that you're doing there with the team, Madeleine. The walking and meetings, you get your fit, you get your air, and you get your concentration. It's got to be three real benefits for it.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this earlier too, guys, about some people who are shy feel very uncomfortable having the camera on all the time. And I know, Madeleine, have you had people? I'm not going to put your team on the spot, but people in your organization where where they don't want the camera on because they feel self-conscious, or as Phil said, they're not used to the spotlight. And how have you dealt with people who not refuse, but really don't want it because they feel very anxious about it?
I think it's an interesting question, because first of all, the word Zoom fatigue was never a word that I heard before this year.
Exactly.
And I can very much relate to it. I think when this pandemic first hits, it was so super important. Everybody should have their cameras on. Yeah. We should see each other all the time. And then to Phil's point, I mean, staring at each other for 8 hours, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. It's like stop looking at me.
Yeah. So I think that something that this has rendered is also a greater understanding for that not everybody has their cameras on all the time, and that is okay too.
Yeah.
But when you have these crucial conversations, especially between two people, the camera should be on.
Yeah. So I think one of the takeaways there is with your really good habit, Madeleine, is that as the managers to mix it up, or the employee to ask the manager to mix it up. So walk and talk, don't always have the camera on. And as Phil's point is that being engaged when people are talking to you, irrespective of whether it's a walk and talk or the camera, really listen to people, because not being physical, it's really important to really understand people, how they feel, but also see in their faces that you don't always see. They may sound fine, but looking at them, they're not fine. So I think that's a really, really important thing to talk about. Phil,
and I also think, just to add upon that, is that one thing that I usually do is, and that I see a lot of other people do too, is that when you start off the meeting, you have the camera on, and then as soon as something is about to present, you can turn the camera off.
Yeah.
And I think that is really something good going forward, because then you don't get that fatigue, but at least you're visible, and if there's anything, you can raise it then, and you see the faces of the people in the beginning.
Exactly. Super. So people take note of Madeleine's walk and talk. We should coin that. Phil, what's been some of your inspiration this year, or things you've heard about some positive spins from this year?
Very good. I want to slightly extend this and make a point about our new working environment. And my positivity is about the neighbours and our attitude towards neighbours, because our neighbours are now our new office colleagues, effectively, and it's their presence around us. And I was chuckling to myself last night, because obviously with the nights getting dark very early here in the Northern Hemisphere, I was running a workshop. It's pitch black outside. I'm standing up like I'm doing now, and I saw my neighbour wandering around, and he could just see me talking into the camera like this. The lights were on, everything was going on, and it just kind of reminded me that, you know, our neighbours are now our new office colleagues. And I don't know what it's like for other people listening into the call, but it's made a huge difference. Not only the working from home, building better relationships, the understanding. You know, my neighbours said, "Oh, you know, I've got hedges to cut. You know, when is a good time so I don't disturb your work?" What kindness, what thought.
And mindful, yeah.
And it's that, and I just want to shout out to how, you know, having worked from home and leading from home has created new connections and new bonds with neighbours, created much stronger relationships, interdependencies that perhaps hadn't been there, or maybe had even been taken for granted, but it's certainly made a massive difference.
You know, I think you hit a really key word for me, that the word connection, because before I sort of asked a question about your stuff, isn't it quite ironic that we think with COVID that people have been working from home and being separated, that we've been isolated? But I can honestly say, with me too, the word connection has been so powerful this year, that more than any other year, because of new communities that I've come across through my cycling, people that I've met through reaching out, who are doing new ventures, and you guys doing this podcast with, that we have never have started this podcast if it wasn't for this. So even though Phil and I, you've known each other for over probably 10 years, we probably only talk when the rugby's on, so a couple of times per year. But we are the ones that we sort of have that really close connection with. And then Madeleine, you know, we talk quite often on our other interests that we do. But it's the things that we don't do outside work that we're always too busy for. And now that, most importantly for me, the cycling community, which was always like a very small piece of my life, has now been one of the most important ones that I have, both for fitness, but also really good new friends. So yeah, like you say, neighbours feel, as well as that things that mean most to people, we've actually made time for it, which I think which has been really, really positive.
Yeah,
I think I would like to add and build upon that, because I mean, exactly as a point, this podcast that we're doing, that has evolved me as a leader and as a person. And I mean, Phil, you and I have never seen each other in real life. I hope that you exist, because I think that you're a lovely person, but I only see you through my screen. And I hope that one day when COVID is over, we can do this together, all three of us in the same room. That would be really fantastic.
Well, exactly. We're going to start doing a leading from home tour, as Phil and I discussed the other week when you were away, Madeleine, that on the road, because the funny thing is that how I met Phil is by doing this remote and virtual leading course in Edinburgh. So Phil, being, you know, an expert or guru in remote learning and virtual learning, has come to the forefront of the world with all these COVID and companies. How do we work remotely? And that's where I think there's so much. And then Phil, I'm not going to embarrass you, but you're going to be ought to be genuine here, that the amount of habits and coaching skills that you provide us as people in the workplace about remote working, virtual learning, and being your genuine passion is incredible. And that's why I said when at the beginning of this year of COVID, Phil, we've got to get you on a podcast to share this stuff, because people need it. And as we've seen now, people need to be coached how to lead teams remotely, because it's a massive skill that you just don't pick up by reading a book or saying, "Oh, I'm going to become a remote leading manager like you guys are, Madeleine." So Phil, I think we owe you a great bit of gratitude for doing this podcast and sharing your skills every week, which people are better from both leaders and employees.
I agree completely.
Okay.
So
thank you very much.
I know you're going all red and pink there, so I'll take the spotlight away from you, Phil, and share one of my positive reflections. And one of those is about passion, because I think it's incredible that what I read through LinkedIn and through people that I talk, and then me personally too, and be engaged in some of the most passionate things that we've always put aside, that we're too busy with work, or I'll do it some other time. This year has brought so many passions to people's lives that they've made their number one thing every single day. And one of the things that I like to start with is that one of the people who I've met, talk about connections, at a Google event. He was a guest speaker, Jamie Anderson. He's a top cyclist in the masters category, and he wrote a post which I'll put in the show notes yesterday about that he was like us, never done podcast, never done video interviews, and he said, I'm going to start a cycling podcast called This Cycling Life, for like people who are trying to manage work, life, and the cycling. And he stood to his word, and every single week he's interviewing experts from cycling teams and to people who's managing cyclists and work. And then for me, like, I jumped on it straight away because I'm a big cyclist, but always never had the time. And then we become super good friends, as well as that this podcast has blown up, and his energy from it. And he says that this is the thing that I love and passionate that I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for COVID. So all these ventures that people have created to build communities, to share communities, that bring other people's life into the forefront, I think is incredible, because without these things, people would have kept on working, getting stressed out, not doing things that they love. And then when they get a bit too old, they think, oh, I should have, would have, could have, but didn't. And I think this has made things, as Nike says, people just do it. And I think that's where I love about this year, that people have just done things because they love it. And they think, well, I'm at home, I've got no more excuses to do it, so let's try it, let's take a risk. And these things happen.
I'm so super curious to see how life is going to turn out post-COVID, because your reflection is super interesting, Sean. And how is life going to turn out after COVID? We will never go back to the way it was.
No, exactly, and that's the best thing about it, that these new connections that we've formed, that are genuine connections, that a lot of the things that I've met through people aren't through people from work. It's people through things that I love, with cycling or with fitness, and you guys with this podcast. And I think that's where we've become more authentic as people. And I think, Phil, if you're the head of coaching, the authentic type of things is, what's your observation with that, in terms of, have you seen that with your experience with people becoming a different character of themselves through this year?
They've got no choice. They've got no choice, because if you like, a lot of stuff has been stripped away. When you leave from home, you are who you are. I think that's taken away, if you like, some of the formal authority, and people have got to lead by being good leaders, people that are prepared to follow.
Yep.
And it really has highlighted the absolutely world-class leaders that it's been a pleasure to be working alongside. And it's also exposed some people who have probably relied on very old-fashioned forms of authority to try and get things done, and often the proximity of the office to make it a reality. But now it's stripped all of that away.
Yeah. And I think, I suppose, the biggest thing, people having time. That how many times do you read in the papers, guys, that people who don't have to commute for like 1 or 2 hours each day, that they have this extra 2 hours per day to do, like, create podcasts and to create cycling communities and to record videos, and then, as you say, when they try and do it, say, this wasn't that hard, I'm not an expert, and this is, and then people actually want to engage with it. And as you say, people like Phil, they actually become, authentic in terms of, being at home. Maybe they feel more relaxed rather than being in this very nervous atmosphere at work, where they have to be in a square box and wear a suit and a tie and be things that they're actually not.
Very true.
And I just want to add one more thing, so I can go back to you guys, because I can finish off with my passion, because it relates to this, is that as well as the community, a bit like you, Phil, in terms of talking about authentic, that I've discovered I've actually found time to address a lot of my issues, that I'm not the only one, I think, is about, taking control of my, I suppose, stress, as well as, at home and at work, the things I've struggled with a lot over the past. by doing this program. I talked about in the earlier podcast with Hinsa, with looking at your whole thing about sleep and your fitness. And I think I would never have done that this year if it wasn't for COVID. That I thought, if I'm going to get through this year, I've got to do something which is going to prevent and manage the things that I've done. And I really recommend people to look at ways to manage their stress, because COVID isn't going to go away, and this is the best time to, like I say, do some exercise, do some look at your sleep, and do things which make you relaxed and recharge, rather than being always switched on, zoomed in, and thinking that this will go away, because I think it won't go away. And the best thing to do is look after yourself. That's my biggest takeaway, that I've done that for myself, and my family's benefit, my work has benefit, and my friends have benefit. So everybody wins. So back to the circle again, Madeleine. What's another takeaway of this year in terms of a positive thing that you've been inspired by or have done in your own life?
I think what I really liked, besides what you just mentioned about the work-life balance, which I see for myself and also experience from team members, that has increased and become so much better. But one thing that I have really enjoyed is to be, on a more personal note, part of everybody's sort of life, because working from home, all of a sudden you can see a pot in the background which looks interesting, or you can see a cat just jumping up and walking, passing through the screen. Life happens, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And all of a sudden you're part of the everyday life and everyday home of both team members, but also associates and colleagues and so on. And we're human beings, all of us. So it doesn't differ so much. Sometimes you have a bad hair day, the cam is off, and somebody says, "Why don't you turn it on?" And you turn it on, and you just show your bad hair day, and that's how life is, right? But it shows people from a more human side, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and that, Phil, we talked about this before, again, a lot of times about being human rather than being that somebody at the night. And what's your reflection upon that in terms of people not being Superman, and at the end of the day that they don't always have to be perfect every single day. You can make mistakes.
Yeah, I think the thing is that that differentiation between the work mum and the home mum, and the work dad and the home dad, are necessarily much more blurred than they were in the past. People don't tend to differentiate the way that they dress or the way that they act now as much between what they are when they're at home versus when they're not in front of the camera versus when they are in front of the camera. And I think that's genuinely a good step forward. I think the only challenge that brings for all of us leading from home is the transition, and that's why people who have got into these brilliant start of day routines and end of day routines, managing those transitions, are probably coping and leading from home most successfully.
Yeah, and that's what
I don't suppose you've noticed I did put a new background up in the middle of this presentation.
Yeah, can you talk about that now, please, Phil? Because I'm reading things, but I think it's best you to describe exactly your transition to something different. So
it just occurred to me that on this day, as we go into the Diwali weekend, that for any Indians that are watching the podcast, I just wanted to reach out there and wish them a very happy Diwali, the Festival of Light. It's going to be a Diwali like no other. In Leicester, in England, where I live, typically it's a celebration. 30,000 Indians will get together, and they'll set off fireworks. There'll be food. There'll be it's the biggest festivity in the Indian calendar. This year, everyone will be celebrating in a very different way. But I just wanted to shout out a big happy Diwali to all the Indians out there who might be listening in.
Fantastic, and that's what I love about this year, and people being more aware, and also taking I suppose more of a recognition of these things that they're always too busy to do. So happy, how do you pronounce that, Phil? Happy Diwali Day to all the people out there celebrating Diwali. So that's I hope they have a excellent celebration. And I was going to say, Phil, too, about not celebrations, but transitions, and that talked about it last week, but managing people from home is a whole way of doing things. And you talked about, you know, having a break between meetings like last week, that rather than booking every meeting on the hour, book it, you know, 15 minutes after the hour, so people have time to have a glass of water, have a break, or if they're working from home, give their kids something to eat, rather than trying to cram people's calendar back to back. Because I know you, Madeleine, I think early on in the year, you talked about how many you had to have back-to-back meetings. So if you as a manager, it's unfair for you to, like, you know, have to have back-to-backs when you also have a family, not just a team to look after. So how have you managed or your managers transition to how managing meetings, and that, as Phil been talking about, being more flexible about meetings and the timing of those meetings, of either shorter, longer, or when they start?
Yeah, I mean, I know when we entered this, this just blew up my calendar totally, and it went crazy and bananas and back to back. I took charge of my own calendar, so I put in focus time, and I have focus time every week now, and just small amount of focus time between meetings, enough to give me some time to go and refill a glass of water, or tend to something, especially if I need to, or just a leg stretcher.
Stretch your legs, yeah.
Yeah, and that is a habit that I will continue to do, regardless how long COVID will be, because I'm feeling good about doing that. I needed that.
Actually, speaking of, now we're talking about fitness, I have to give both of you credit for talk about looking after yourself, having gone into stand-up desks. Before this podcast, both of you weren't having a stand-up desk like I've always had. So talk about habits that you've stood by and haven't just gone back to sitting down and having these squatchy shoulders. You guys have sustained stand-up desks. So congratulations of being the inspiring to other people to do the same. That, can I honestly say, now that you've done it for quite a few months now, for people who've never done it, honestly, how have you done it, and how have you felt before and after, in terms of breaking it in?
And grateful for you, Sean, for sort of forcing me into it.
I didn't force you. I
No, but you
inspired. I inspired.
me. Yeah, you did.
Encouraged, exactly.
Huge inspiration. And now, once I've turned into a standing desk, I will never go back. That's simple.
Yep.
And the same. For just every day, I probably spend all the day on there. I actually sat down for a day and got to the end of it and was really sore, really stiff, and I thought that was a stupid thing to do. And particularly from a training perspective, so, you know, when I'm delivering virtual workshops, this is by far the best way to get that energy and enthusiasm across, much more than you can ever do when you sat in the chair. So no, it's been a life changer.
And I agree with you, Sean, Phil, sorry, because when I have, it depends on what kind of meetings I have. When I have presentation meetings, when I need to inspire, I always stand up.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is exactly what you do when you are at the office.
Exactly.
You move around, right? And the funny thing here is that because of the standing up desk, I was talking so much about it. So a friend of mine who's American, lives in America, works as an attorney. I mean, that's a pretty squared area, so to say. He has bought one of these standing up desks, and nobody at his office would ever believe, what is this? You know, what are you doing? Now everybody wants it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I've gone back to work, so I'm sitting in another office in home doing some work, and I sit down for a while, I go back to old habits like this. Literally, you got the crouch back, the shoulders, you know, trying to type on the laptop. So this way, for people who just want to try it, standing up like this, typing versus like that, you'll be guaranteed headaches go away. You talk a lot better to people and you present. So for those skeptics or those who want to try it, here's two people who've tried it, done it, and now never go back. So talk about fitness and inspired. We're almost out of time, guys. Because this has been so good, let's do part 2 next week, because we haven't finished our list that we've been preparing for. And there's so much good stuff this year that's happened with the bad, depressing, the facts of life, that this has been a super tough year for everybody, but there's so much good that's come out of it, that, like we've talked about, habits can be created and maintained to help manage this to become a lot easier, particularly as we go into a tough autumn, winter, and next year. So as we always like to talk about positive things, weekends, no boxing for you this weekend, Madeleine. So what's going to happen this weekend for you, which is in a nice way?
Well, I'm going to kick off the weekend with a long run, honestly, to get some energy, and then a good glass of wine after that.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to spoil yourself and treat. Actually, speaking of running, you can meet Phil when we first do it in person by a runoff, because Phil's also a good runner. So Phil, you and Madeleine are going to have a runoff. We're going to film this in terms of like a 5K race, Sweden versus England.
Well, thank you. No pressure there, but I will get some training in this weekend, so I'm going to definitely get out and about. And there's some rugby on, so I'm looking forward to watching England play this weekend against Georgia. So
you should win that one. That's quite no disrespect to Georgia, but that's a walk in the park for England. So good luck with that one in the weekend with the game. And excellent. We all have a theme of fitness, because I'm doing the same thing. I'm going for a bike ride. I'm going on a mountain bike with my son, who's now, speaking of this year, he's been taken into cycling like myself a lot more. So him and I are going to go for a mountain bike ride in the woods to get some exercise and some family time. So that's my big looking forward to that on the weekend. So everybody have a super weekend. Stay safe. Look after your arm, Madeleine. Don't break any legs. Go out running. So please, we need you back for next week's podcast for part 2. And enjoy the week. Stay safe, and speak to you part 2 about positivity and inspiration of these habits. Thanks,
Happy
guys.
Diwali, everyone. Bye-bye.
You too. Happy Diwali.
Bye-bye.
Bye.